Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We're going to get into something that I think is really important for any skill, but especially if you're dedicated to meditation, and that is, how do we accurately judge our progress? We're looking at some excerpts from a book on meditation that I think really get into the nuances of this.
Yeah. It's interesting because in meditation, we're not just doing something, we're also observing how we're doing.
Right.
And it's sort of like a meta-awareness that then you have to evaluate. So it adds this extra layer of complexity to it.
Yeah. It's not as simple as tracking how many miles you run or, how many, whatever it is. Right.
Right.
So where do we even begin with this? And it seems like this book, at least the first thing it really emphasizes is that we need to be judging our actions during meditation, not our self-worth.
Exactly. And I think that's a great place to start because, every time we sit down to meditate, it's like we're stepping onto this mental training ground.
Yeah.
And it's about really observing, what our mind is doing, what it's up to, and not necessarily labeling ourselves as good or bad based on those observations.
So it's not about beating myself up if I get distracted or conversely feeling, superior because I managed to, stay focused for a few minutes.
Exactly. And I think the book really highlights how those judgments, whether they're positive or negative, can actually hinder our progress. Because that negative self-judgment can lead to discouragement and, make us want to just quit altogether.
Sure.
But then that positive self-judgment can be equally detrimental because it can make us complacent and blind to the areas where we actually need to improve.
That's a really good point because I can see how getting attached to those, even those fleeting moments of peacefulness or, whatever it is that we experience during meditation, how that can actually prevent us from going deeper.
Absolutely.
So how do we strike that balance of observing without judging?
Well, the book offers this simple but really powerful phrase, and it's, oops, there it goes again. And so you can imagine you're sitting there meditating and your mind starts to wander off to your to-do list.
Happens all the time.
Right. And instead of getting caught up in that spiral of self-criticism, you simply acknowledge it, oops, there it goes again, and gently guide your attention back to the breath.
So it's like having a gentle internal coach instead of, that harsh inner critic.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that leads us to this concept of meditation as a work in progress.
Okay.
The book compares it to a craftsperson meticulously refining their technique over time. Yeah. And, they don't expect to create a masterpiece on their first try. It's about continuous adjustments and improvements along the way.
I love that analogy because it makes it feel a lot more approachable.
Yeah.
So it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
In fact, are they essential to the learning process?
Absolutely. Mistakes are inevitable and they're not failures. They're valuable feedback. So each time we notice our mind wandering, it's an opportunity to gently redirect it. And it's that constant process of observing and redirecting that actually strengthens our attention muscle over time.
It's interesting, though, because I think I often come to meditation with an expectation of instant results.
Right.
Like I should just immediately experience, a sense of profound calm or bliss or something. And this book is emphasizing that the relationship between our actions and the results in meditation are much more complex than that.
Yeah, it is. And, sometimes we experience the positive effects of our practice days or even weeks later. And so it's not always this linear cause and effect relationship.
So just because a certain technique worked wonders yesterday doesn't mean it's guaranteed to work the same way today?
Exactly. The mind is so dynamic. It's influenced by countless factors.
Well,
our sleep stress, even the weather.
Sure.
And that's why the book cautions against dwelling too much on past successes or failures. The most important thing is to show up each day with a fresh perspective and focus on the practice itself, not the outcome.
This is helpful because I know I tend to get discouraged when I have a really, amazing meditation one day and then the next day my mind just feels like a runaway train.
Right, and that's a common experience, and it ties directly into what the book calls sudden reversals.
Sudden reversals, what are those?
So these are basically unexpected shifts in our meditation experience. So you might be, enjoying this period of deep stillness, and then suddenly your mind becomes incredibly agitated.
Yeah.
Or you might be struggling with distractions, and then out of nowhere, you experience this profound sense of peace.
So even when things are going well, we shouldn't get complacent. And when things feel tough, we shouldn't lose hope.
Exactly. Those reversals are normal and even necessary. They teach us to stay alert and adaptable in our practice.
So it sounds like cultivating that inner observer that we were talking about earlier is key here. That part of us that can just witness the fluctuations of the mind without getting swept away by them.
Precisely. The inner observer helps us to detach from the drama of our thoughts and emotions, and it allows us to observe our experience with more objectivity, almost like a scientist observing a phenomenon.
I see how that could be so helpful in judging our progress honestly, without letting our emotions kind of cloud our judgment.
Yeah.
So instead of getting frustrated by those sudden reversals, we can just acknowledge them as part of the natural ebb and flow of the practice.
Exactly. The key is to maintain a sense of equanimity, regardless of whether our meditation feels quote-unquote good or bad on any given day.
Yeah, this is really making me rethink how I approach those moments where my mind feels really scattered during meditation. Instead of getting frustrated, I can see them as valuable opportunities to learn more about how my mind works and strengthen my ability to focus.
That's a great insight, and it leads us to another crucial principle from the book, and that is avoiding comparisons.
Ah, yes, the comparison trap. I think we all fall into that from time to time.
Oh, it's so easy to do, especially in today's world. But when it comes to meditation, comparing ourselves to others is a recipe for discouragement.
Because everyone's journey is unique.
Exactly. And the book uses this powerful analogy. It says, imagine a hospital ward filled with patients recovering from different illnesses.
Okay.
You wouldn't expect everyone to heal at the same rate, would you?
That's a great point. It's like trying to measure my progress using a ruler that's designed for someone else's journey.
Right?
So how do we avoid falling into this trap?
Well, the book suggests focusing on our own personal experience and defining our own metrics for success. So what are the specific changes that you're hoping to cultivate through meditation?
That's such an important question. It's like creating a personalized roadmap for my practice.
Exactly.
Instead of trying to follow someone else's path, this is so eye-opening. It's shifting my whole perspective on how to approach my meditation practice.
That's the power of these deep dives. They help us to uncover new ways of thinking and making more informed choices about our own unique paths.
So if we're trying to define our own metrics for success, it seems like we need to shift our focus away from those fleeting feelings of peace or bliss that we might experience during meditation.
Absolutely. Those feelings can be wonderful, but they're not reliable indicators of progress.
Okay.
They're like the weather constantly changing.
Okay, so if we're not relying solely on our emotional state, then how do we gauge the effectiveness of our practice? What are some other metrics that we can use?
Well, the book suggests looking for evidence of what it calls ripple effects.
Ripple effects.
Yeah. These are the subtle but profound shifts in our awareness and behavior that occur as a result of our practice.
You mean how the insights and skills that we cultivate on the cushion start to show up in our daily lives?
Precisely. Instead of asking, did I feel peaceful during meditation? Ask yourself, am I becoming more patient with my family, or am I handling stress at work with more grace? These are the real signs of progress.
I love that it's not just about how we feel during those 20 minutes of meditation, but how those 20 minutes start to influence the other 23 hours and 40 minutes of our day.
Right.
So we're looking for evidence of those ripple effects. What are some other examples?
Well, are you finding it easier to let go of negative thoughts?
Okay.
Are you more present and engaged in your conversations? Do you notice a greater sense of clarity and purpose in your life?
It's like we're looking for those small but significant shifts in our thoughts, feelings, and actions that indicate we're integrating the principles of mindfulness into our lives.
Exactly. And these shifts often happen gradually beneath the surface of our awareness. It's not always about those big dramatic breakthroughs.
That makes sense. It's like the way a tree grows. You don't see it happening day to day.
Yeah.
But over time, it becomes taller and stronger.
That's a great analogy. And just like a tree needs consistent nourishment to grow, our meditation practice needs consistent effort and attention.
This is really challenging me to rethink how I view progress. It's not about chasing some idealized state of perfection. It's about cultivating a more mindful and compassionate way of being in the world.
That's the heart of it. And it reminds me of another important point from the book. It emphasizes that just like patients in a hospital ward, each recovering at their own pace, we need to honor the uniqueness of our own individual journeys.
So no more comparing my 5 minutes of meditation to someone who can sit for an hour without a single thought.
Right. What matters is your consistency and your commitment to showing up for your practice, regardless of what your mind is doing on any given day.
This is such a relief, to be honest. It takes the pressure off trying to achieve some arbitrary standard of success and allows me to focus on the process itself.
Exactly. And when we shift our focus to the process, we often find that the results take care of themselves.
That makes sense. It's like when we get too fixated on the destination, we miss all the beautiful scenery along the way.
Exactly. And those moments of beauty, those moments of insight and growth are what make the journey so rewarding.
This has been such an illuminating conversation. I feel like I have a much clearer understanding of how to approach my meditation practice and how to judge my progress in a way that is both compassionate and insightful.
I'm glad to hear that. And as we wrap up this part of our discussion, I want to emphasize that these principles of self-awareness, non-judgmental observation, and consistent effort are not limited to meditation. They can be applied to any area of life where we're seeking to grow and improve.
You mean like learning a new language, developing a new skill, or even working through a challenging relationship?
Absolutely. Whether you're trying to become a better musician, a better writer, or a better parent, these principles can provide a powerful framework for navigating the journey.
So it's really about cultivating a growth mindset, the understanding that we're all works in progress, always evolving and learning.
Exactly. And when we embrace this mindset, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities. We free ourselves from the limitations of self-judgment and allow ourselves to grow and evolve in ways we never thought possible.
You know, this whole conversation has really shifted my perspective on what it means to make progress.
Yeah.
You know, especially in something like meditation, where the results can be so subtle and often internal.
Yeah, it's true. Judging progress in meditation requires a level of nuance and self-awareness that goes beyond, simply checking off boxes or achieving specific outcomes.
Right. And like we've been talking about those external markers of success.
Yeah.
Like the number of minutes we meditate or even how calm we feel can be misleading.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question that I hope will encourage you to continue reflecting on this topic.
Okay.
What personal metric, aside from your emotional state, will you use to gauge the effectiveness of your meditation practice?
That's a really powerful question. It's challenging me to think beyond those immediate feelings and look for the deeper, more lasting impacts of my practice.
Yeah, and I think the answer to that question will be unique for each individual. It's about identifying those specific areas of your life where you're hoping to see growth and change.
So for one person, it might be noticing that they're less reactive in stressful situations. For another, it might be feeling more connected and compassionate in their relationships.
Exactly, and for someone else, it might be experiencing a greater sense of clarity and purpose in their life.
Yeah, it's about tuning in to those subtle shifts in our awareness and behavior that indicate we're truly integrating the principles of mindfulness into our lives.
Beautifully said. And remember, those shifts may not always be obvious or dramatic. They often unfold gradually, like a seed slowly germinating beneath the surface of the soil.
This has been such a thought-provoking and insightful deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools and perspectives for not only approaching my meditation practice, but also for navigating the journey of personal growth in any area of my life.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, the journey is ongoing. There's no finish line. The real reward lies in the process of continuous learning, growth, and self-discovery.
Well, thank you so much for guiding us through this exploration. It's been incredibly valuable. And to all of you listening, we encourage you to continue reflecting on these ideas and to discover your own personal metrics for measuring progress on your unique path. Until next time.